that. Let me just note that we're being live streamed. Is that I don't want to insert an incomplete draft into the combined for a couple of reasons. One, it makes editing that much tougher.
Okay.
I can appreciate you trying to. We all strive for perfect, which is great. But at this point, it's give me your best. And there are a couple things that I'm just going to tell you that I was going to email to you anyway, but as long as we're here, they're just quick things. In looking through the latest version that had Brian's most recent set of edits too.
Yes.
The fonts are inconsistent as far as size throughout the document. There's 11, there's 10, there's 14, there's, and some is single space, some is spaced on a quarter, some is, so the basic mechanics like that need to be consistent. My recommendation to the group is that we agree to double space the lines. One,
okay,
it gives us added length. And also it's a lot easier for people to read. Quite honestly, I'd suggest that I like the fact that you use the Times New Roman font. That's a good font for us to use. I'd suggest using a 12 for the text as far as font size.
I always write in 10. Okay, I'll use 12.
10's a little small. 11 still a little small. 12 is right in the sweet spot, because then you can use a 14 for the
headers for the titles.
Right. So I'd say that. The other thing is when we have bullet points, it should always start off with the first word should be should have an uppercase letter, not a lowercase letter. So I noticed in some of the bullet list was all the text was there, but it was all like render this, include this. It was always lowercase I, lowercase r. Shouldn't be that. I mean, basically, unless you have a set string of this is what I mean by ... and then it's okay. I can see.
Okay.
But that's not what the impression that I got from it. So the bullets kind of stand on their own. So really, they should have an uppercase. So those are some basic just formatting stuff. I like the content that I've seen so far. We need to consider the audience that we're talking to.
Yes, that's the thing. Yeah. Right. If you notice,
this is the common council, almost none of which are technical people. So it's not just the technical language, it's our choice of wording. We want it so that, as my one prof used to say, our grandmother who never went beyond middle school could understand what we're saying. That's not a slap at anyone that didn't go to college. It's just we need to be sure that we're clear. And I'm just as guilty of that as anybody else. So, I think we're mostly there. There's a couple cases where I was like, that's a really nice way of putting it, but that's really well above the audience that we're.
I understand. Yeah. And then that's something I struggled with. And then me and Brian coming from technical backgrounds.
Right.
It's us, really trying to express it in like I that's why certain sections became lengthy. Just trying to actually like break it down to something that's a little bit more understandable and more commonly understood. Right.
Okay. We have someone named Rachel here with us. I don't recognize the name.
Rachel McEnany?
Oh, hey, Rachel. Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say hi. How are you?
Hello.
Okay. I just wasn't sure who else was here. I'm like, oh, hello. We're just going through the last set of edits for the final report, just so you know.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. So basically, I think we're actually in pretty good shape. I'm going to talk to Josh a little bit about finalizing some of the benchmarking stuff. We had good stuff before that I think will still fit here. It's just we're playing up different points.
Right. It's still relevant.
Yeah. It's still relevant. We're speaking to different aspects of what we had benchmarked earlier, and we'll supplement that with one or two more cases. But consistently, I think the recommendations that we're making are a good stepped, which we've said before, a good stepped approach to what we think the city should do next. Rachel, just for your benefit, so that you have a sort of an advanced look, what we're talking about is, in the last set, we said it makes sense to really have the city control the broadband authority and possibly pursue creating a standalone authority to manage the broadband network for the city. Certainly, that's a great long-term goal, but to expect the creation of a fully working authority, fully staffed, from a cost perspective, isn't really reasonable. And also, trying to staff up would take so much time that it wasn't really a fair approach to the first steps. What we're suggesting is a model similar to what you did with the sustainability coordinator and with the new neighborhoods department, which is to have a city department or a part of a city department with a broadband coordinator and staff who acts as the liaison between different stakeholders in the community and contractors that are hired to create the infrastructure to create municipal broadband within the city. The idea being that again, it gives you that first step in. It allows the tech. It keeps the tech expertise in the hands of the experts that are available right now. It's a way to manage the cost and manage the risk to the city, and at the same time focus on those parts of the city with the greatest need first, and then expand outward and upward, if that makes sense to you.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and your timing could be better because we're starting to build our budget.
That's why we want to get it done. Our goal was to get this into your and the mayor's hands, and into the city council's hands in time for it to work into the upcoming budget, the upcoming city budget season, and at the same time, given the fact that the state ledge is sort of on break, sort of right now, if we did need to involve Pat or any of the state delegation for anything, it would be in time to get word to them in advance of when they come back into session this fall. So
that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds great.
Keep the ball rolling. I do think that one of the things from the first report that we may want to keep in is to still pursue the request, which Pat was willing to do, to amend the authorities law to allow cities to create a specifically municipal broadband authority. Because I know that right now there are restrictions as to what kind of authorities can be created. And in talking to Pat briefly about that last year, she was definitely on board with making that, with trying to put forth that type of change, and that would have to come from the state level. So the idea being that when the city's ready to, if they wish to, they wouldn't have to pursue an added layer of change. Then they'd simply have the authority to make that happen, which might help with pursuit of grant money as well. So anyway, so that's where I think we're at. Martin, as I say, your piece is solid. Jeff, your piece is very solid. Dana, your piece is, I'd say 90% solid, except for the pieces that I haven't seen yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. I'll update the formatting, and also to compare to our preliminary report. Last time we used EndNote, if I'm not mistaken, right?
We used I think we used EndNote to do the references, to do the work cited. And Jess, I think you helped us out with the table of contents.
I know that I set up folders, I believe, in a Google Drive.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
I'll revisit
And
that.
I think once we have the combined version, we'll post it there, and then we can all see it and tweak it. And I'll ask Jess at that point to resend the link out to us all, so we can make last minute edits in the shared space there.
Okay,
Um,
I can I'll find the link, and I'll send it out to you guys right after this meeting.
Great, that would be perfect. And we'll create a folder for final report. And then we can add and build from there, because that way we can all see what we're editing and make any recommendations that we want in the space in real time. And as we get close to the wire here, I think that's going to be needed, because I don't want myself or anyone else to hold us up from going ahead with this. As I said before, our goal is to have this done by end of day the 31st. I think we've made valuable use of the added time that we were given. And again, I think we've come up with a plan that will give the city a good map to move ahead with. Martin's work, especially with coming up with the cost estimates, the finance section has been very good. So Rachel, I think that will give you a lot of help, especially with the budget part of this. But the other thing is just identifying some of the stakeholder groups and the potential model that we can use to create a board to move ahead with this. What we're proposing is a type of model that's been used with smart city development, which involves both private sector, non-for-profit sector, and government stakeholder groups getting seats on a board coordinated by the city's broadband coordinator to share resources and expertise to develop a broadband network for the city. Again, that type of model is focused on both mitigating risk across the board for all of the sectors involved, and bring to bear the combined expertise of the community itself. Plus, it builds trust, builds community buy-in, which will be critical for the long-term success of this. And again, keeps down the cost of the city, which is sort of nice too, because they're not paid board, because the board isn't paid. It's they're donating their time, their expertise, in exchange for which they get credit for being quote unquote good citizens, taking part in the community. And that model was recommended by the World Economic Forum and a few more. As I said, it's been very successful. So that's the base model that we're using, that we're proposing as part of this report. That's all I've got for right now. Does anyone have any questions or anything specific that they want to bring up for us to address?
Craig, what about the intro and conclusion?
All right. Yes. Thanks for bringing up, because that was actually on my list of things to look at. I was going to work on writing that, but I expect a lot of editing. I definitely want input on it. As I say, that's why it's critical to have a finished version of each section in the combined draft. For the intro, I'm thinking we follow the same model that we did with the preliminary report, which is here are our high level recommendations, and indicate which sections of the report will deal with those. And then the conclusion is just to revisit, here's why we think this, and here are the advantages that each of these gives. I wouldn't expect either section to be more than 2 pages. Given where we're at now, I think we're going to come up around the same length as the preliminary report, which I think was between 40 and 45 pages in total. That's cover page, works cited, etc. But yeah, we should have that over the weekend at the outside. If Dana, if you're able to get me your finalized version during the week this week, I'll try and get.
Oh yeah, definitely by Friday, for sure.
Then I should definitely be able to draw up the intro and the conclusion draft from that point. I expect to have our benchmarking piece done by the same time. So we should be in pretty good shape.
Greg, I have a question. So one thing that I've noticed from our different sections, and I know I've read everyone's draft, is like the semantics of the end user, right? So should we refer to the end user as resident, consumer, or customer?
That's a good.
I've been using consumer.
I think consumer's the best way. That's
Okay.
my personal take on it, because really it's not just city residents. It's not just city residents. Not just those that reside in the city. It's anyone within city limits, potentially that would have access to the broadband network. Certainly that includes residents. That includes business. That includes businesses.
Right.
So I would go with consumer.
Okay. Martin, do you use customer? I think you use customer.
Me?
No, Martin.
Oh, Martin. I'm not sure. Martin, did you use customer?
Are you using customers?
I think I've actually used, all of the terms interchangeably.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Me
we
too.
can
Like
look
those
at
three.
we can look at creating some kind of consistency across.
Yeah, so it's universal. Okay.
Yeah, just so that no one's confused about what we're talking about or who. Yeah, we can look at that for the finalized come by.
Okay.
And that could really just be a straight fine, and replace.
Yeah, in the Word doc, right?
Yeah, we can make that happen. So that should be addressable, but that's a good point. No, that's valid. And I think the other thing is to make sure that we're using the same voice. Are we talking in the first person, the third person? I haven't noticed a problem with it in this draft. I know in the first draft we had to change some voicing around, but so far it looks like we're in pretty good shape. So say as we finalize things, we just need to keep that in mind. As I say, I understand, especially with the technical aspects, stuff not to be technical because you have to be,
Right.
but we do have to consider the audience.
Correct.
So if there are terms that you as a tech person go, oh, they're not going to know what that means, we may need to add a list of terms.
That's actually what I've been compiling too, and I wanted your take on that. Right.
I think that's a very good idea. I think that's a very good idea.
Yeah, I know for sure I'm going to need that.
Yeah, I think that's an important appendix to add, because again, the goal here is the goals are clarity, comprehensibility, and utility. We can create the best report in the world, but if it's not going to be a good tool to move things ahead, then we've wasted 2 years of our lives and the time of anyone that takes the time to read the report. So it needs to be a useful tool, and I think we're there.
Right.
I feel comfortable with it, but I think it's good for all of us to keep that in mind with any edit that we look and say, oh, gee, well, we can tweak this. Okay, does that not affect those goals? Does it impact those goals, or does it pursue those goals? And that's the touchy-feely kind of thing we get to, down at the end of things. But I like the work that all of you have done. You've definitely stepped up to it. I know it's been a long haul and we're right to the wire. So I just ask that we stay focused for about a week more, and get us where we need to be. All right. And if you have any questions or anything that you want to throw at me and say, hey, Craig, what do you think of this? Or what any of us think of this, share it to the group. That's why we're all here.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump on and thank everybody for doing all this hard work. I know it hasn't been easy. I just also wanted to note that Spectrum announced a $5 surcharge increase for all people in this area.
Yeah.
There's going to be an increase to it. So you may want to add that into as really the only definitive provider at this point. I think it's something you may want to add in your notes. So I
That's
think
very-
people will be paying a little more attention to you guys.
I think to bring Rachel, yes. You know, and I think and we really hadn't addressed it as a specific point, but I think one of the things we may want to make a high level recommendation is in the past, the city has pursued what called sole source contracts for the city. And Spectrum traditionally has been given the contract.
Yeah, always.
And I mean, given the way the technology, the amount of providers that are cropping up, I'm not sure that's a sound model for us to take. We should say, let's keep a more sole source contracting for this kind of thing in a given environment just does not make sense. Not when they keep jacking the price anyway. All you're gonna do is piss off the taxpayers. So, you know, and there's still a lot of homes that aren't being served. So and I think making people compete is good. It's good for us. It's good for the city. But that's my take. So something for us to think about. I think creating the municipal broad the way we've been talking about does that. It forces the providers to compete for the marketplace and possibly lower their rates or provide incentive to serve those who are not currently served within the city limits. By bringing the city into the market, bringing itself into the marketplace. The advantage we have over cities like Chattanooga, which is the model that most people point to for this type of municipal broadband, is that in their state they aren't allowed to charge a lower price than the private sector. Than the private sector. The way they got around that was to provide better service. So they provide much better service at the same price. In New York State, we're not barred, but we don't have that legal barrier. So the city, if it does have a broadband network that's available, could charge a lower price than Spectrum, than Verizon, than anyone else, and at the same time provide the same level or a greater level of service, forcing Spectrum or Verizon to then, in order to compete in this market, to lower their prices or provide better service.
Right. It's certainly going to act like a catalyst, no doubt. Yeah.
I think so.
If it's implemented, right.
And I think this is a good time. You know, people are home more. They're working from home more. You know, this is a marketplace that's now rife for internet service. So, okay, let's insist that let's insist that the city that the people of the city of Albany, regardless of their income, have access to the best service at a price that they can actually afford. And I think it's introducing the city into its role to look out for it, into its role, which is a traditional role of looking out for its citizens. It'll be an interesting time. But I think that we can provide, again, the first steps on the way to getting there. And I think that's the thing. It's an incremental approach, which we've talked about amongst ourselves. You know, you walk before you run. And this will get us there. This will get us there. All right. Martin, did you have anything that you wanted to bring up or add?
No, I don't really have necessarily anything that I have to add. I mean, I'll end. I'm actually right now looking at my
draft.
section and just, updating it so that, we're using the term consumers. So
Okay. All right, perfect. Jeff, what about you?
Craig, I just, if you need any help with the intro or conclusion, obviously I'll take a look.
Cool.
Just editing, but on the other end, if you need anything, please let me know.
Great. No, I definitely will. I know Josh couldn't be here tonight because he's still away. But he and I will be touching base in the next day or so, and he's committed to finalizing the benchmarking piece, and that's the piece that I want to get done first. So I'm expecting the intro and the conclusion, as I say, Diana, once I have your updated version, and Martin, once you make the changes that you want to make, we'll assemble that. Then I'll start on the intro and the conclusion. So Jeff, probably Friday, Saturday, and Jess, we'll get it to you so that you can put it on the shared drive once we're set.
Okay, sounds good. And I will send you guys the links to the shared drive right after this meeting.
Perfect.
Oh,
All
Craig,
right.
one more question. I'm sorry. So,
Okay.
if I'm sending you a Word doc, and then that's what me and Brian been both collaborating on. Should I send you the Word doc with the actual images on it? I just don't want them to get distorted. So I actually wanted to insert the images on the live doc. So once
I
I'm
would
finished,
I would say send it with
Do both?
with them. Yeah, send.
I'll do both.
Yeah,
Okay.
if we have to reset, we can do that.
Okay.
Because sometimes coming back off a Google Drive in normal Word, things get sort
Yeah,
of
And
misaligned
skewed and all
anyway.
that. Okay.
So we may need to do some tweaks with the inserts of any graph of any graphs or images.
Okay.
But we'll try and make sure that we set time aside to do that should it be necessary.
All right.
Hopefully
Sure.
it won't. Hopefully it wouldn't be that involved, but if it
I don't
is,
think so either. Okay.
no. I mean, in my experience, because I just had to do a report like that. I think I spent 30 minutes doing the resets, so it's gotten a little
Okay.
better. All right. So yeah, I'd say put the inserts in just so we get a full sense of what you're referring to and where,
Got it.
and
Okay.
we'll go from there. And I know, Dana, you had suggested that you could do the cover.
Oh yeah. I definitely got the report cover underway. Yes.
Perfect.
Trying to make everything visually appearing because
Perfect.
I care about aesthetics as well.
So do I.
Yes.
So I think that's great, and I really appreciate you taking that on. Okay. All right. Does anyone else have anything they want to ask or bring up?
So I just wanted to say, once you guys are in a good spot with the report, and it's done, just forward it to me.
Yep.
And then I'll forward it along to the city clerk and the mayor, and I'll CC you guys.
Great.
And I also just wanted to say that this has been a really good experience. It's been great working with you guys, and I think you guys have done an awesome job. And I've definitely learned a lot. I don't come from an IT background, so I appreciate all the knowledge I've received. So thank you.
You are
Thank you, Jessica.
most welcome. And Jess, I have to say that you and Luke have been absolutely great throughout this process.
Oh yes.
It's been a joy for us to work with both of you. And I know that I communicated that to Mark Dory. But as long as Rage was here as well, I like her to hear it. We could not have done what we've been able to do without Jess's help. There's no question in my mind. Both as both as just a person that helps us pull things together, and as a sounding board for some of what we wanted to do. Her and Luke both.
Yes.
They are steady hands that make things work every day. I
Yes.
really, both of them are incredible.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, and believe me, when we say here's who we thank for and working with us, and both their names will be present. There's no question
course.
for that. So with that said, if there's nothing further, we can wrap this up, and then we can actually spend some time working on our drafts. But I expect to hear from you all in the next 2 or 3 days. And once we have the shared drive up and running, we'll start to make our final edits there. Jess, if you could set a final brief meeting for us next week, as we get closer to the 31st, look at our calendars. I'm not sure what, I mean, my work calendar is not a work calendar these days. But the rest of you, I know, have different responsibilities. But just so that we have one final meeting to say, okay, we're pleased with where we're at and we're ready to go.
Okay, yep, I'll definitely set some time.
Okay, great. I think that's all I've got. All right, folks. Okay. With that said, we'll see you soon.
All right.
Yeah,
Have a good
bye-bye.
night.
Take care.